On today's Locked On Twins, we're going to talk about the spring training storylines for your Minnesota Twins as they prepare for Grapefruit League play to open up here quite soon. Players have reported. Everybody is there. Nobody was late, contrary to what you may have heard. And so we're going to break that all down. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hi, it's Locked On Twins, and I'm your host, Brandon Warren. You can unfollow me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE, and I am joined by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Dave Brown at Answer Dave Brown on the Twitter machine. Dave, how are you this evening?
Brandon Warren, I'm feeling great. I'm excited. I'm well fed from dinner, and the Twins have games later this week, right? And they're all in camp, and I don't know. Do they have games later this week? I actually don't remember.
It always surprises me how quickly spring training games come up after they report. I know they are playing the University of Minnesota.
Oh, that counts.
Right. So, I mean, that's the opener of most spring training seasons. I am pulling it up, though. Saturday, February 24th. Yep. So the first Grapefruit League game is the Pirates. It looks like that's at Fort Myers. Have you ever been to Bradenton? That's such a weird setup for a major league spring training. To me, it's
I've been to Pirate City, which sounds like a lot of fun.
That's it. Yep.
But they used the stadium, McKechnie Field, is in a different place than the Pirate City where they train. So I've been to Pirate City, and it's actually kind of cool. But I've heard stories about how you don't want to lose your car or anything like that. Let's just say
it's like players were parking across the street in like a dirt lot. So, and then it's like in a kind of like a warehouse area. I feel like there's like 5 auto parts stores nearby. Not to besmirch auto parts, but in fact,
I service or I go to auto parts stores myself. I would hate to, especially if they're a sponsor, which they're not yet. But
well, we have eBay Motors later tonight, so technically they are. In my town, though, there is it's so funny, auto parts store, hardware store, auto parts store. So it's kind of like the Hatfields and the McCoys separated by Hardware Hank.
Well, they tell you, Hardware Hank, they tell you that in like college level marketing classes that's done on purpose. That's a purposeful thing to put businesses that are like competitors even on the same corner or block or whatever. And that's I guess it reminds people driving by, hey, that's the place to go for your auto parts or your hamburgers or whatever.
Now imagine a place that had both of those. Anywho, thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for being an everydayer. Our numbers have been terrific of late. Might have something to do with producing episodes on a regular basis, which I was very bad at before Dave Brown came along. So we're very excited about that. Yep, exactly. As part of the Locked On podcast number 2, we're your team every day. And we're doing a lot better with that every day. So again, if you're an everydayer, thank you so much. We appreciate you greatly. And the numbers reflect that as well. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today or in the next few days if you wish, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Probably a little too late to put anything down on the NBA All-Star game. And if you are truly a degenerate. But we love you all the same. Dave Brown, we are talking today about spring training storylines. And so I texted you a little less than an hour ago and said, hey, if you have any storylines, send them over. And you sent me like 65 storylines. So we may end up doing part 1, part 2, and who knows how many more. It's reminding me a little bit of the series, which is incomplete at this point, of Twins free agent signings that you don't remember, which I have actually gotten people to say that they want us to finish that. So if spring training gets cold or boring, we'll go back to that, or maybe some bonus episodes. Nothing wrong with those. But without further ado, let's dive into some of these questions. This is one that kind of came up for you and for me as well. So we're using my version, but it's a collaborative thing. How healthy / ready are Chris Paddock and Anthony Desclafani, Tony Disco, if you are okay with that nickname as well? And the big thing here is that's 40% of your opening day rotation. And sometimes you can manipulate a rotation to start the season, 4 guys if your off days line up. The Twins almost always seem to, because they have to have days off when they play in weird weather cities, especially the home opener. So again, though, that's still 40% of a rotation. And the John Paul Morosi tweeted today that there's no expected innings limit for Chris Paddock, which is maybe a little scary, but we'll see what happens there. But even still, the protection that they have in the form of Louis Varland, and we have a comment on him at some point too, isn't enough, because I still question if they maybe should really go grab another starter. I think we both agree that it would be ideal, but how healthy are these guys? Honestly, I'm not sure.
Not sure. And Paddock, it's not like it's a minor injury. It's a big deal, and it takes a while to get all the way back, and you want to be sure. DeSclafani's injury is less of a big deal. It's apparently, they say, more about rest than anything else, and he's had a lot of rest. They shut him down at the end of last year. I'll go back to answer your question before, like, do they have enough pitching? I'm trying to stay consistent with this. 1 through 62, AL Central, I think they do. I think they do have enough pitching. Where I would wonder is if, when we talk about, well, what happens later? What happens in the playoffs? Missing that number 2 starter, to me, then that becomes more of a big deal down the road. So I'm sticking with that standpoint, but I do understand that. You tasked me with coming up with a few things to talk about. And as I was doing that, I'm like, for as optimistic as I am about the Twins' chances, there are a lot of questions that need to be answered. And it isn't like the questions are necessarily, it's not like questions are bad, but we don't know yet. We really don't know yet how healthy everybody's going to be and when the best version of themselves will take over. So it is definitely worth watching.
My question about that, if I can remember it, was, how much does the state of the rest of the division play into that, where you can kind of feel out early in the season where these guys are at, and maybe you wait till the deadline to make a deal. You could also hope like a guy like Simeon Woods Richardson takes a step forward.
Right.
Louis Varland, we've talked about a couple different times as far as, can he take a step forward? But the division, and I know we're still getting a lot of propaganda from some pretty big names about if the Royals can contend this year. But I think the Twins are in a good place where, you can't start slow. Those games all count the same, but they probably do have a little more cushion than, let's say, the Red Sox, for instance, who have virtually none.
Well, the way the Red Sox are dealing people on their major league roster for prospects, I think I don't know if they see the writing on the wall or what, but as far as the rest of the AL East, it's one thing for you and I and for the pundits, and which I guess we are, and other people, the analysts.
We're talking heads in this video, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, I have a little shoulder, but most of this is my head.
Yeah.
So,
showing a little shoulder, are we?
Some neck. Oh, there's my hand.
Hey.
But no, your point is taken. As was my thought. No, it's one thing for us to discuss all that, but it can be a dangerous game for a team, for the Twins to say, well, the White Sox are playing for a new ballpark in a few years, and the Royals, while they have added some guys, they won 56 games last year. They shouldn't.
And they're also playing for a new ballpark.
What's that?
And they're also playing for a new ballpark.
Yeah, who isn't? And the Tigers, is that ever going to fix itself? Who knows? So, it's one thing to look at, if for us to look at the rest of the division and go, the Twins have some margin for error here, or margin for a slow start, or whatever. That's much more of a dangerous game when it's your job and it's your team. So I think that is maybe in the back of the front office's mind that, well, everything doesn't have to be perfect at the beginning. And
Right.
remember, it is baseball too. It's probably not going to be perfect at the beginning or all season. So that you can take that a little too far. But I think probably they can't help but think that they have a little of cushion for time and for results not being exactly what they want at the beginning.
I think the Tigers are a good example of the pitfalls of setting up your rebuild around pitching because, granted, Spencer Torkelson is a big deal too, and so is Riley Green, but they have not gotten as much as you'd hope out of Casey Mize, Matt Manning. Tariq Skubal is nasty, but again, has to stay healthy. So we'll see what happens there. But, they've had a lot of attrition on the pitching side, and that's just the name of the game.
Exactly. I mean, they have addressed it in this offseason, Kenta Maeda among their new players. But, getting back to the Twins, I think while they have questions, and if you look at it's like a fan graph, it's like the Pacoda deal. You're not necessarily, when you see those numbers come out, you're seeing like a probability of this guy hitting certain marks in his statistics, but there's a range of outcomes. And if the Twins generally have decent outcomes with all these questions that they have, they're going to be in really good shape to win the division. So I think that's more like how the front office is thinking, rather than, boy, we do have some cushion in case all these other teams fall on their face again.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm going to ask you about non-roster invitees on the other side of things. So if you mute, just know that we won't hear you clicking and clanging.
I'm not going to mute. I'm not coughing.
Okay. Well, good, because I'm going to ask you about non-roster invitees after a word from our friends over at FanDuel. If you're like Anthony Edwards, you can get buckets left-handed with your first bet on FanDuel. I'm left-handed, so I'm kind of
no kidding,
maybe a little biased. But America's number one sports book is FanDuel, their sports book partner of the NBA. And right now, you can, if you're a new customer, get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. So pick one of those bets you really like, get the W, and then you will be swimming in bonus bets. That's $150 if your bet wins. So again, maybe bet against the Detroit Pistons, for instance. And you can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams, though, with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and much, much more. You really got to just check out the app because we don't have enough time to lay out all the different ways that you can win. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel is an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Now, Dave Brown, the next question I wanted to ask is, what non-roster invitee, if any, makes the opening day roster? And I pulled up, I guess I shouldn't say that. That's kind of a weird phrase to use. I pulled up the non-roster invitees, and I like one on the offensive side. On the pitching side, I don't know. The problem is I can't really isolate one because, do they like Jeff Brigham more than Matt Bowman or, any number of guys who have some big league experience, but not that much. So I'm honing in on Nico Goodrum. So former Twin, and he started off like 0 for 17 or something that first year, whatever. And then I think he got taken off the 40, or either way, he got picked up by the Tigers, and he had some success there. But he hits lefties. Like, that's the one thing he's really had as a calling card. That's the one thing the Twins can really use. But I don't know if he's a fit based on the fact that, as far as I can tell, he's not an outfielder. I mean, he came up as an infielder. I don't think they want to put him in the outfield.
No, more of a Donovan Solano type of infield.
Infield's pretty crowded, so you'd need a Willie Castro level of breakthrough in spring training to make it. But that's my guy. And on the pitching side, I said Jordan Balazovic, just because they obviously value him considerably, even though they took him off the 40. But yeah, so those are my two guys.
They value Zovic, if you will.
Value Zovic, yep.
It's a good question. In past seasons, I don't know what the Twins like over the last 10 years. How many non-roster guys actually make the roster? That would be
It's like a reliever every year, like a Jared Burton, a Casey Fiend. Who else have they had? Brock Stewart was a 2-year minor league deal because he had arm issues. But Jose De Leon last offseason.
It's something that does happen that they're willing to do. I was looking at the names on there, and it struck me again how deep the 40-man roster is, and I would imagine deeper than usual. And we've talked about that before, adding Jay Jackson and some other moves like that.
Not Jay Jaffe.
What's that?
Not Jay Jaffe, Jay Jackson.
Not Jay Jaffe. I didn't say Jay Jaffe, did I?
I'm just saying that's where my brain went.
Okay. Well, Jay Jaffe would be a fine addition to any clubhouse, but I don't think he could. He's a good writer.
He really is.
And a good man and thorough. But these are, if somebody gets hurt, I want to knock on wood, but like if Edouard Julien gets hurt, I could see Brooks Lee making the opening day roster. It would take something like that, or it would take a Royce Lewis getting hurt or something like that for that to happen. I don't see.
How dare you?
I don't. It's like we can't, doing a no-hitter. We can't really affect it.
It's happened before too. Like you're not exactly just making something up.
No, I know, but I'm saying that's what it would take. I don't think anybody is gonna. I don't think any of these guys can win a job unless somebody gets hurt. I don't. They are clearly, and I mean maybe that isn't like a great revelatory statement, but I think they are full of guys on the 40-man roster that should make the team. Goodrum is a guy, but like if one of the backups on if Farmer gets hurt, then Goodrum could make the team. But I don't see it. I don't see anybody unless there is an injury. So I think that certainly is a developing storyline to watch and see exactly who makes themselves look like because spring training can be fool's gold as far as these performances and results from them. You've got to be really careful. More so, I think, probably in the Cactus League because of the environment. But you can sort of fool yourself. Well, this guy played really well in spring training for 3 weeks, and if you don't like really analyze who he was playing against and the situations, it doesn't necessarily matter. I'm not a huge believer in making the team out of spring training. I think there's a lot more that goes into it than that, especially these days. And aside from an injury, I don't see it.
That's a good segue to the next one, which is how ironclad is the bullpen? Because if you go on Roster Resource, first of all, Louis Varland is listed at AAA, which it's really hard to put him in either the rotation or the bullpen. So you kind of by default put him at St. Paul, even though he's probably not going to waste too many bullets there in his hometown. But as far as relievers who have options left, you've got Duran and Jax, who are obviously not penciled, but rather sharpied into this bullpen. You got Justin Topa, who's 33 years old, and Josh Stelmont, who is just a touch over 30 years old. And if you don't have Stelmont in your opening day bullpen, it may be more due to where he's at physically. But otherwise, it's pretty ironclad. And if they don't need a fifth starter, you probably just shift Desclafani down or, keep him back a little bit, have him throw some bullpens and figure it out. But I think the bullpen is almost lock, stock, and barrel what it's going to be 1 through 8.
Well, with Varland, I kind of we talked about this before, like how ready is he to, if he had to step into the rotation in the first week or two of the season, could he do it as far as being stretched out? Is he ready to do it? And, you don't want to waste bullets at AAA, at St. Paul, but at the same time, that could be the extended spring training route could be more of a way for him to get ready to move into the rotation when his turns start to come up later in April or whenever it would be as far as how the schedule goes. So I think when you see, Varland being in AAA, I think that is an educated guess as to where he will best be able to prepare for when he's due to be a starter, if that's how it works out. I suppose it might not. That's one thing, Louis Varland's progress during spring training. Is he going to be ready to be a starter when they need a fifth guy or sixth guy or whatever it is? So that's definitely worth watching.
In your mind's eye, what's a better use for him? Long reliever with a potential kind of uneven workload, or starting every fifth day at St. Paul? Because again, I mentioned wasting bullets, but there's something to be said about him throwing 80, 85, 90 pitches every fifth day, as opposed to, 60 one day, you're down for 3 days, you throw 40 one day, you're down for 5 days, and then 20, like it's not predictable. Like, the theory of a long guy makes sense because you can ramp him up with a couple starts right after that. But
kind of like how I feel about the NRI guys not necessarily breaking into the opening day roster. I
yeah,
feel like the bullpen is deep enough with other guys that you won't need it. That you won't need Varland. Maybe I'm wrong, and they're counting pitches for Paddock and DeSclafani. Maybe there will be use for another pitcher, and maybe that's how the bench gets filled out with
yeah.
a bullpen guy. That could be, but I think if he does well in these spring training games and it looks like they want him to continue with the starter possibility, then St. Paul is the best choice.
Okay. Well, that makes sense to me. Let's pause. When we come back, we'll wrap up with a few more of our storylines. And it's looking to me like we're going to have another full episode. So people should really get excited for that, in my opinion. But first, let's talk about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience are what bring home the winning trophy, and also what keep your ride alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Plenty of things that I don't understand, but they can take care of for you. It doesn't matter whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit no matter what, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. So with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to see that you can turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, and eBay guaranteed fit is only available to U.S. customers. But again, ebaymotors.com is your place to get all of your motor parts. All right, so we did actually get in a motor parts, car parts, auto parts ad. So
we didn't. We didn't have to go out and to an intersection or a strip mall that had a bunch of different places. It was right there on eBay all along, right here at our fingertips.
Yeah, exactly. So very exciting. So this is one I really liked that you submitted, and it's, what is the plan to keep Byron Buxton? Oh shoot, I said happy. It should be healthy.
Well, he was so excited about being happy and healthy that's where you were going with that.
I think I got confused with a certain pharmacy being happy and healthy, but there we go. It says healthy. How do you keep Byron Buxton healthy? And is that a reasonable goal? And, the Plica feels better. I think it's Plica. I don't know. I'm not great with knees, but if
mine are kind of sore themselves.
Yeah, if there was something that they could do, I mean, they probably have tried it by now. But again, we can't just disregard that he's feeling good. He's feeling happy and all that good stuff. But short of what everybody jokes, put him in bubble wrap. What do you think is likely? I think it's going to be, maintenance days where he DHs, maintenance days where, maybe they're facing a tough righty and want to get Matt Wallner extra plate appearances, or maybe Trevor Larnach sneaks into the lineup. There's going to be options where they can shift somebody to center and all that, but it's going to be curious to see how they handle him, especially early.
Now that I've asked the question, I don't feel bad, but I have second thoughts about it, because it seems like most of the time when he gets hurt that it's bad luck. It's certainly not because he's in bad shape.
It's
I mean,
effort.
he's cut like a diamond. I mean, the guy's is in good enough shape for a million years.
Yep.
He could be playing in the NFL. I don't know if he could, if he has, maybe he wanted to at one time, but he's very athletic and
200 miles an hour, no matter what he's doing, though.
yes. I mean, we can build in maintenance days and we can be smart about usage in that way. But I guess he can't go 1,000% in the outfield, crashing into things. He's going to have to take a little bit of care. Now, once the season starts, I mean, and we're not just talking about keeping him healthy during spring training, but during the season, a lot of Byron Buxton's value is on defense.
Mm-hmm.
And although in recent seasons he's figured it out hitting too, so he's got lots of stuff going for him, but he's just going to have to be careful not running into the fence or Kepler or Wallner, who's ever in the outfield, and just continuing to be smart about it and hope that his luck turns. And but it's a matter of being smart with those maintenance days and off days. This is why we talk about, well, maybe they should bring back Michael A. Taylor so you have a regular center fielder on those days when Buxton isn't ready to go. All of this fits into this puzzle, and you still want him to be to just go for it on balls in the gap, but you just want him to be smart about it and sort of cross your fingers. So that's part of the plan right there.
So from one superstar who has dealt with injuries to another, how much should we actually expect from Royce Lewis? Because honestly, 2022, 146 weighted runs created plus, 300 batting average in 12 games. And in 58 games this past season, a 155 weighted runs created plus. He's been worth 2.9 Fangraphs WAR in his first 70 games. So you extrapolate that to 140 games, you got a 6-win player. And while projections are quote unquote down on him, let's just go with the bat from Fangraphs. They have him at 264, 323, 460 with solid defense at third base and a WAR of 3.1. Every WAR projection is between 3 and 4 wins. That's pretty good. There's significant buzz here. A couple of 126 weighted runs created plus projections from ATC and Steamer or Zips are my personal favorite, but Steamer really likes him. Honestly, the sky's the limit for this kid. Won't be 25 until June. And man, I feel old. June 5th, 1999. Like, these players are born on days that I definitely remember being alive. Like, it's not 1992 where I'm 6 years old. I was 13 years old when this kid was born. Like, I remember that.
I was working for the Associated Press in 1999 in sometimes the Twins clubhouse.
Hey,
talking to Jock Jones or whatever. Was he around by then? But
yeah, he would have been. Yep.
Yeah. So,
like, but
right.
Actually, did you know he played center and Torrey played a corner for a while?
No kidding.
Which seems strange. There was actually a game. I don't know if it was an interleague game in Cincinnati, because I don't think it was at home. No, it couldn't have been at home because it was a walk-off. I think it was Cincinnati back when Synergy had that crazy springy turf, and he came in on a ball and it bounced over his head, which obviously Metronome, he'd be familiar with that, but on a visiting stadium,
maybe not.
Different. But yeah, he was in center. And I think Torrey was in either left or right. I think he was in left and Matt Lawton was in right. Former show guest Matt Lawton. All of which is to say, hey, I'm sorry, I have waylaid your point about.
I'm ready to go with it. How good is Royce Lewis going to be? I kind of fall on the upside part. I was just very much impressed, let's just say, with how he finished the season last year and continued into the playoffs. And I think he's older. I think him being older will work to his advantage. He's got a little more experience. He's not a 22, 23-year-old kid. He's a 25-year-old kid. So,
by the way, his mom makes the jewelry that I wear.
No kidding.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Is that a coincidence, or did you get that because you saw that she made it?
A little bit of both. Etsy, man. Etsy.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's
Yep.
a heck of a website, like
Anyhow,
eBay Motors.
again, I'm just derailing you.
It's a funny divergence anecdote. It's okay.
Yeah.
No, I think the hype is real. I wonder about Julian a little bit if he was out over his skis more than I do Lewis. I see
Yep. Yep.
maybe some aggression for Edouard, but it's kind of a continuance for Royce. And I look at 3 WAR as a baseline. I think
Mhm.
he can do one more WAR than that, and that's elite territory.
What do you think? Like, what percentile does he have to hit? And I mean hit in terms of reach to be the most valuable player between him, Byron Buxton, and Carlos Correa? Because like it's sneaky exciting for him to be in that conversation.
For sure. And I just think about, well, if Buxton is really healthy and if Carlos Correa's feet and ankles are all there, and if uh, you know, if third base is an elite player, an elite spot on the team,
Yep.
that's really great. I
That's a
mean,
nasty 1, 2, 3
it
trio.
is really nasty. And again, you know, I so what does he have to do? I mean, if Royce Lewis, I'm just going to look at it like this: if Royce Lewis plays in 140 games, he'll be a top 12 AL MVP
Yep.
person.
I like it. Well, like always, we're pushing up against the limit of timing. We will be back tomorrow. We will talk about all kinds of fun stuff. I don't want to tip it off too much, but we'll talk about prospects. We'll talk about maybe Brooks Lee, who is a prospect, Matt Wallner, all that fun stuff. But hey, thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Twins, and we'll see you tomorrow night.